There's one thing in the anime community right now being talked about more than anything else, and yet is barely understood by the majority of the people talking about it. And the craziest bit is it's not even the fault of the people talking about it, it's just the subject matter is incredibly complicated. That topic, of course, is the Founding Titan. This is one of the most complicated figures, characters, amalgamations in the history of anime. And because of that, I love it, because I understand it, and therefore it creates a job for me to explain it to you. So if you could show a little appreciation for my job and like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell, well, that'd be greatly appreciated. And if you want to go above and beyond in appreciation, you can go ahead and hit that join button and become a member of the Weeb Alliance over here on YouTube, giving you access to 3 additional videos a month, emotes, badges, and even member shoutouts. But if that's not something you're comfortable with, there's no correct way to support a content creator. I'm just happy you're here now. And before we get into breaking down the Founding Titan, guys, I just want you all to know that there will be no spoilers in this video. So the Founding Titan, the hottest topic in the streets right now. What is it? What are its powers? Who has had it? Where did it come from? How did it start? We're going to answer all of those questions, but let's start where we usually start, the beginning. The very beginning of the Attack on Titan story begins 2,000 years ago, when the Eldians, who at this time were just a group of dudes reminiscent of Vikings, attacked the village that Ymir Fritz belonged to and therefore enslaved all of the people in that village. The Eldians didn't necessarily see a need for their slaves to talk, so they cut the tongues out of each and every single one of their slaves' mouths, which is why we never see Ymir Fritz talk in the anime. They don't really go over the tongue thing in the anime. So Ymir Fritz and her village live as slaves under the Eldians, until one day a pig is released from the Eldians' cages. The Eldians ask who released the pig from the cage, and all of the slaves point at Ymir. See, this point at Ymir is a very pivotal moment in the anime, but nobody ever is like, why weren't they talking? Once again, it's because they didn't have tongues, so they only could point. And it's at this point that Ymir Fritz is freed. Ymir is freed and given a head start, and then she is hunted by men on horses and dogs. Obviously, they catch up with her. She doesn't have 4 legs, and she is wounded. It's at this point that she crawls into a nearby tree, but when she crawls into that tree, she falls into a massive body of water where she encounters a mysterious spine-like creature. This mysterious spine-like creature attaches to Ymir and triggers the first ever Titan transformation. But there's a lot of questions out there about this mysterious spine-like creature. Most importantly, what is it? It is tentatively called the source of all living matter. And these are all things that were covered in the manga that are kind of breezed over in the anime, so it's not a spoiler. I'm just trying to fill out the info for you. There's a quote from the Attack on Titan manga that says, long ago, when nothing but mere matter existed in this world, as countless masses of unknown things appeared, disappeared, then appeared again, one of them eventually survived. We know that as life. And these centipede-like creatures were the first amalgamation of life on Earth. At least that's what's widely believed. We don't know that for sure. What we do know for sure is, though, when they come into contact with living things, they have the ability to augment them physically. The tree that this centipede lived under was massively larger than all the other trees around it. And the physical contact between Ymir and it created the first Titan transformation and the creation of the paths. This is actually a pretty good time to break down what the paths are roughly. Think of the paths a bit like an afterlife, but everybody who's living, as long as they're an Eldian, can also access it. It is a point in space-time where all Eldian race members eventually meet. So living or dead, all Eldian souls meet in the paths at some point. And therefore, all conscious thought from Eldians is connected to the paths. Zeke hypothesizes that because Ymir was so afraid of both death and pain, that when she connected to the source of all living matter, she made the Titans, which were an indestructible body to keep her away from pain, and she made the paths, which kept her away from death, because the Eldian race never truly dies. They just ascend to the paths. But this actually isn't the only time we've seen the source of all living matter. Do you guys remember when FaZe Gabby first became famous for hitting that 360 no-scope on Eren? If you remember, it wasn't Zeke who popped Eren's head over back onto his body. No, it was a centipede that shot out of Eren's body and reconnected his head through that. That centipede was the source of all living life, which showed in that moment not only it can change its shape, but it also has an invested interest in Eren staying alive, and is also passed down through every single Founding Titan. But we have a long way until we get to Eren in terms of history. Ymir has just triggered the first ever Titan transformation. And what did she do with this new, incredibly and unstoppable power in the age of the Eldians? She went back to serve her king, guy who cut her tongue out. So they used Ymir's Titan to build bridges and cultivate lands and kill a lot of people, amassing a massive amount of wealth, and also to destroy Eldia's #1 bad guy, Marley. Because you think Titans are a problem when you have heavy artillery? Imagine when all you have is a bow and arrow. And how did Ymir get paid for all of this? Well, the king took her as his concubine. Concubine is a fancy way of saying mistress who you want to have children with. And together they had 3 children, Maria, Rose, and Sheena. You know, like the walls. And after living 13 of what must have been the worst years ever, Ymir dies protecting the king from an assassination attempt. As to why she died to the spear, we don't really know. Was it in this moment that Ymir realized that her life truly wasn't worth living anymore, or was it because of the 13-year rule? The 13-year rule referring to when a Titan shifter eats the old Titan shifter, they have 13 years until they die, basically. But I don't think it was the 13-year rule. In fact, I think it was this moment that created the 13-year rule. I truly believe Ymir was just done. But here's the thing, unfortunately, even in death, she was not done. She was transported to a mysterious land, and this mysterious land was the Paths. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the king was making all 3 of her daughters eat every ounce of her body and just yelling at them to reproduce. Reproduce and eat each other. Reproduce and eat each other. That's all he was saying. And in a sense, he was correct in doing this because by eating Ymir, they inherited the power of the Titans. And so obviously we know how Titan shifting works, but what is Ymir doing in all of this? This was also kind of hazy in the anime. Ymir, when she's building Zeke's body out of sand, kind of is an homage to what Ymir has been doing for these thousands of years. Ymir builds every single Titan. What do I mean by that? You know how every Titan is different? That's because every time an Eldian invokes the power of the Titans, Ymir has to make them a Titan body. That's Titan shifters and pure Titans alike. And this is the way things went for about 1900 years. The Eldians had children and then ate each other until Karl Fritz in year 145 inherited the founding Titan. You see, in Eldia, there had been major royal Eldian families, and each of these Eldian families had 1 or 2 of the Titan shifters, and these Eldian families fought each other for lands and resources. Karl Fritz was sick of this, so he chose to abandon the conflicts of Eldia and went to Paradise Island. And it was at this point that Karl used the power of the founding Titan, i.e. Ymir, to create a bunch of colossal Titans to make walls. And because the founding Titan was gone, the Great Titan War started. And in this Great Titan War, Marley was able to beat back Eldia and take back all of its land, mostly because they were helped by the Tybers, who had the Warhammer Titan. Fearing that they would be persecuted, the Eldians then fled from, I guess now Marley, to Paradise Island. And once everybody was nice and within the walls, King Fritz erased everybody's memories using the power of the founding Titan. Well, everybody but the royalty and the Ackermans, because the Ackermans aren't Eldians, and therefore the powers of the founding Titans don't work on the Ackermans. In kind of a weird move, after everyone was nice and cozy in the wall, King Fritz reached out to his relatives who still stayed in, I guess now, Marley. And he said any descendants of his would be overtaken by his will should they try to use the founding Titan for the good of Eldia, essentially stating that us over on Paradise Island will not be able to use the founding Titan for war, basically. He hoped that this would stop the Eldians from being persecuted, but at the same time, it assured their destruction, because the founding Titan was the only way the Eldians could fight back against a foreign enemy. And eventually, Karl Fritz died and passed down the power of the founding Titan to the now named Reese family. The next known inheritor of the founding Titan is Uri Reese, Historia's uncle, Rod Reese's younger brother, the guy who would later pass it on to his niece, Frida Reese. Uri wanted to use the power of the founding Titan to end the plague of Titans outside the walls. He begged with his father to do this, but when he himself inherited the founding Titan and inherited the memories of the outside world, he adopted the same ideology as his father. Later on, he would be attacked by Kenny Ackerman, who figured out he was the one true king because Kenny wanted the power of the founding Titan. You see, Kenny as an Ackerman hadn't had his memories changed. That being said, the Ackermans didn't tell their children about the outside world to protect them. But Kenny still found out and therefore was able to deduce the power system and find Uri. Even after Kenny tries to assassinate Uri, they become best friends because Uri was very mild-mannered. That doesn't really have anything to do with the founding Titan, so moving on. Maybe we'll make a video about Kenny Ackerman one day. Uri then passed the founding Titan on to Frida, Rod's daughter, and she made very little use of the founding Titan outside of going to visit Historia, who was her half-sister, but Frida would visit her and then erase the memory of those visits every single time. The next bit of news about the Founding Titan comes in the form of Grisha Jaeger. Grisha Jaeger had been brought to Paradise 13 years prior to his assassination of the Reese family. As he's about to be injected with Titan serum for being a traitor on the mainland in Marley, Eren Kruger transforms into the Attack Titan and kills all the Marleyan soldiers around. It's at this point that Eren Kruger injects Grisha with Titan serum, has Grisha turn into a Titan, and then eat Eren. Yes, this is why Grisha named his child Eren. Grisha is then the Attack Titan for 13 years, even though he doesn't really use it inside of the walls. That is, until he finds the Reese family, and he begs the Reese family to use the power of the Founding Titans to help the people on Paradise Island. But just like every other Founding Titan inheritor before them, they say no. So he eats them all, including Frida, who tries to use the Founding Titan's ability to fight off the Attack Titan, but due to her inexperience as a Titan, gets overpowered by Grisha. And then boom, Grisha Jaeger's got the Founding Titan, which we all know eventually ends up in Eren. But Eren was the person who convinced Grisha to kill the Reese family. And I know exactly what you're wondering. How does that work? Because in order for Eren to be there to convince Grisha to kill the royal family, Grisha would have had to kill the royal family. And if you think of time in a linear structure, it doesn't make sense. But that's not how the Founding Titan sees time. This is the perfect transition to talking about the powers of the Founding Titan. You see, the Founding Titan is clairvoyant, meaning that the Founding Titan doesn't see just the present. No, the Founding Titan sees the past, present, and future simultaneously. Time to us is like watching a TV show through a screen. We see the things that are happening around us, and that's it. And while we have memories of the past and we might hypothesize what's coming in the future, we're not seeing those things. The Founding Titan is like having a screen that shows you everything that's ever happened or ever will happen or is that currently happening simultaneously. So therefore, anybody who's ever had access to the Founding Titan exists in every single time. And while their body may be physically present in 2022, their consciousness can exist in 3022 or 1022. Therefore, Eren's consciousness can travel through the paths to the past, and influence events of the past, even if those events were instrumental in him receiving the Founding Titan. You see, because the Founding Titan can manipulate subjects of the past, but only if it means they are making sure that the timeline that is currently happening remains happening. See, Eren can't go back in time and make sure the walls never fell, because then the timeline would be disrupted. But the Founding Titan can go back in time to make sure that that timeline that is happening continues to happen, because all events ever have already happened in the Attack on Titan universe. There is a set timeline that does not change. So the Founding Titan knows exactly what's going to happen in the future. Well, with one exception. They need to have royal blood, sort of. In order to be entirely clairvoyant or use the other powers that we'll go over in a second, the Founding Titan needs to have royal blood. Otherwise, you won't be able to truly see what the future is. You might be able to see some snippets, or you might be able to see some snippets of the past, but you won't be able to time hop. And the reason I said sort of is because you don't technically need royal blood. If an inheritor of the Founding Titan doesn't have royal blood, but they come into contact with a Titan with royal blood, they are able to use the Founding Titan's abilities. This is seen when Eren comes into contact with Dina Fritz's pure Titan and is able to use the power of the Founding Titan to make a bunch of other Titans come attack her. However, should an inheritor of the Founding Titan touch a human with royal blood, it's kind of different. In this circumstance, the Founding Titan inheritor receives memories from the previous inheritor, but these are snippets and sometimes not even the desired memory. Or if an inheritor of one of the 9 Titans comes into contact with an inheritor of the Founding Titan who doesn't have royal blood, the inheritor of one of the 9 Titans with royal blood is able to use the powers of the Founding Titan. We see this with Zeke in the Paths. This is because the power of the Founding Titan comes through commanding Ymir Fritz. So even if you don't have the Founding Titan, if you're in contact with the person who has the Founding Titan and you have royal blood, her slave mentality stayed intact, so she'll listen to the person with royal blood. This was more or less Zeke's entire euthanation plan. But Eren basically broke her out of this slave mentality and activated the rumbling. That's why he's in charge now. So Eren kind of broke all of the rules. But now that we've talked about the royal blood necessity, let's talk about some of the Founding Titan's other abilities. Most of the Founding Titan's abilities are channeled through its scream, but scream is a misnomer because this power doesn't have to be screamed. In fact, the Founding Titan doesn't even have to be in Founding Titan form to use this ability. We saw Frida Reese simply talk to Historia to erase her memories while in human form. But since we're talking talking about memory manipulation, let's talk about memory manipulation. Since all Eldians are connected through the paths, and that's where Ymir Fritz is, the inheritor of the founding titan can mess with people's memories there. And while this is mostly seen being used to erase memories, it can also put in new memories. And like we've stated, this was used by Fritz to make everyone forget the wars that were outside the walls, and used by Frida to make Historia forget their encounters. The founding titan can also create titans. Essentially, any subject of Ymir, the founding titan inheritor, can essentially point at and be like, I want that one to be X, Y, and Z titan. The reason why I say X, Y, and Z titan is because, remember, Ymir makes the titan that you become. And since the inheritor of the founding titan is in control of Ymir, they get to choose what kind of titan you become. This is why Fritz made all of the people in the walls colossal titans. But the founding titan isn't just making titans to make titans. No, the founding titan is able then to control all these titans. The founding titan can give any command to a pure titan, and that pure titan will do it, no questions asked. This is shown when Eren commands all of the pure titans around him to eat Dina Fritz's pure titan and also attack the armor titan. And the reason I say that it works 100% on pure titans is because it doesn't necessarily work on titan shifters. Titan shifters feel the effects of the call, but don't have to listen to it. Think of it a bit like your parents telling you to do something. You know you should, but you don't necessarily have to. This power was used to build the walls by Fritz, but also command an army of titans during the era of Eldia. And here's the thing, this power doesn't have a range, because I'll remind you once again, all Eldian souls are connected through the paths. So Eren could give the command every subject of Ymir, unalive yourself, and every single possible titan shifter on Earth would die. This is why Rodriguez says it has the capability to end all titans if used correctly. Obviously the titan shifters wouldn't have to listen, but that only leaves 9 Eldians, who then can't pass their powers down because there's no other Eldians to give them to. And while Rod's plan may not have been for every single subject of Ymir to go suicide themselves, there is the possibility that he was in the same camp as Zeke. And that's because of the founding titan's last ability, anatomical manipulation. You know how Ymir makes every single titan form? Well, that's because she has control over the anatomical structure of every subject of Ymir. In fact, 600 years before the events of Attack on Titan, a king used anatomical manipulation on the entirety of the population of the subjects of Ymir to make them immune to a deadly epidemic. This is why Zeke wants to use this ability to make all subjects of Ymir sterile, which is a much nicer way to wipe out the titans. So if the founding titan wanted every subject of Ymir to have 4 arms, they would. And who wouldn't want to walk around like Goro? You know how many things you could get done? Oh, I lied. There's one more ability of the founding titan. They also can telepathically communicate with every single subject of Ymir, because once again, every single subject of Ymir is connected in the paths. That's how Eren was able to bring even babies into the paths and essentially tell them that the rumbling was starting and he was going to kill everyone outside of Paradise Island. And that is about it. Everything you need to know about the founding titan. There is some other stuff that pops out along the lines in the manga, and you'll figure that out once it comes out, but it's nothing too hugely important. For the meantime, you have a full and comprehensive understanding of one of the most complicated things in anime history. And if you feel appreciative of that knowledge at all, please guys, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're curious about getting additional content from me, or just cool badges and emotes, or even a shout out, go ahead and hit that join button for me. I'm not saying I want the founding titan's abilities, but wouldn't it be nice to erase the memories of all the times you've embarrassed yourself in front of your friends?